For most people, symptoms of coronavirus can go away in a few weeks, but there are some survivors who have lingering symptoms that can last months. They're now known as long haulers. The Pulmonary Wellness Foundation launched an online boot camp to help those survivors who are still experiencing symptoms. So joining me now is Harper Powell, a long hauler from right here in Denver. And tell us a little bit about your experience with COVID-19 and when did you first get diagnosed with it?
Yeah, so I was studying abroad a year ago. I just finished college in December, so I was a junior at the time, and I was in southern France, and I had a great experience, very grateful to get to go study abroad, but it was towards the end of February, kind of when things were starting to pick up. COVID was becoming more and more into the news, and I started feeling sick then, and I was sick for a few weeks, and then I thought I had gotten better, started kind of upping my activity level a bit more and felt like I relapsed, and by that time kind of had to come home and rested and isolated and quarantined and all that, and wasn't getting better. So weeks and then months went by, and I was starting to wonder more and more, what could this be? And went to some doctor's appointments, and there were no answers of what else it could be. So at the time when I was initially sick, I wasn't able to get a rapid test or a PCR test. So I did do an antibody test a couple months later, and that was negative, but that seems to be pretty common for a lot of people who get sick early on with COVID, is that the antibody tests aren't accurate and they were still being developed. So by the summer and the fall, seeing more and more doctors, more and more appointments, my doctors were labeling it as long COVID and saying that's what I have, because it matches up with all my symptoms, with the way the disease has manifested itself, and not having any other answers as to what it could be. So it's negative for mono and Epstein-Barr and these other kinds of things that can last a little bit longer.
Wow, and it's been almost, I guess, a month, because you said February. What have your symptoms been like?
Yeah, so it started off with just a really, really tight chest, and I felt like I couldn't get a deep breath in, and I just felt like I had a band kind of around my chest, and I did end up coughing after about a week. Things started breaking up, and I was kind of feeling that way for a while. I had pretty bad fatigue. I had some other sort of random inflammatory symptoms in the acute stage, and then when I got back home to Colorado, the fatigue was one of the main things, and I also had heart palpitations. The chest tightness stayed continuous, some GI discomfort, and really, really inflamed eczema, and just some other random symptoms throughout. So the lasting ones have been mainly the fatigue, the chest tightness, the palpitations, and I do have some heart issues that I'm dealing with right now. And the main thing being just the high levels of inflammation in the body that cause all of these various symptoms. Brain fog, even fatigue is one of the big ones. So those are the main ones.
Yeah, that sounds tough. Tell us about this COVID boot camp, and how did you first hear about it, and what are you learning from it?
Yeah, so one of the things about this COVID long haul experience is that I got onto a lot of online support groups, and there has been quite an increase in these, in the memberships of these for sure, but the resources have been super valuable. And so I'm part of a group on Slack that was started by Body Politic, and they're a group that's really for patient-led research and advocacy. And some of the research in there talked talked about the Pulmonary Wellness Foundation. So I've been familiar with the foundation for probably several months, but hadn't really dug into much of the material until lately. So just in the last couple of weeks, I got connected with Dr. Noah Greenspan, who founded the Pulmonary Wellness Foundation several years ago, and then in this last year has really been kind of gearing a lot of the foundation's work towards long haulers. And so I've been able to lately just dig into some more of these materials on breathing exercises and really ramping down activity level, even if you feel okay doing activity. And so one of the things that I talked about Dr. Greenspan recently was for me personally to like wear compression stockings and increase electrolytes and fluids, and also really taking a break from activity, even if it doesn't feel like I overdo it, because that's a common thing for a lot of long haulers, is that we tend to get into these places where we feel okay doing activity, and so we keep going, and then we reap the not the benefits, but like we have consequences in the following days. And so learning to really trust your body and listen to it and just be really gentle. And so I was an endurance athlete. I raced mountain bikes competitively, and I was also a cross country skier and did other kinds of activities, and so I'm used to pushing my body at a high level. And so that's been one of the greatest challenges throughout this whole year, is that I've had to learn not to push my body, which feels very different, and I haven't been able to work out nearly to the level that I used to be. And so there have been times throughout this year where I went on an easy bike ride and I thought, I feel okay. I mean, I don't feel like what I was capable of doing before, but I'm going to keep going because I don't feel terrible, like I'm going to fall off my bike or something. And so I kept going and would ride for about an hour or something. And then it was later that I would get a really bad headache, or the fatigue would really set in, or the following days I would just be kind of wiped out.
Wow, yeah, I can imagine that would be very tough to go from all the things you were used to doing to not being able to do them to that point. What advice do you have for others who may be going through that or experiencing these lingering symptoms?
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the big things is towards the beginning phases is to rest more than you think you need to, because at the beginning, when I thought I had kicked this illness and I thought I was getting better and started working out again, that's when I felt the symptoms come back. And pushing your body too much at that stage can also cause some of these lingering symptoms, like cardiac problems and lung problems that I've experienced with heart stuff. So definitely towards the beginning, resting more than you need to. And I think that tactic stays true throughout. If your symptoms persist for months, because your body needs to go into a state of resting and healing. In order to do that, it needs to rest more than you need to.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Harper, and for sharing your story. And we hope you get to feeling a little bit better soon. We also,
Thank you.
Of course. We also spoke to the doctor who created that COVID boot camp, and you can watch that full interview and more information about long haulers on cbsdenver.com.